This is our evening. A few of you have waited for this for quite some time. I will say a little bit about myself. So about me, I started this work 25 years ago. I mean, I was assisting and I was a mentor for a family therapist for his clients because his method, he was convinced that people need so much more help in between sessions, and the therapy is just not enough because, we all know we can't be called at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And people, when they are in a real struggle, they often need to do that or just need much more support during the week or the 2 weeks whenever they have sessions. So that's how I started out. And I was reading books, going to seminars, did a lot of things. I translated for this therapist in Europe. I put on seminars for him there. And the funny thing was, in a break, I remember one specifically, I just knocked on his door and I fell apart in the lunch break. I'm such a bad mother. I can never fix this anymore. I'm not doing all these things you're saying we should do as parents. Then he just said, it's never too late. You're learning, calm down, you will do better, and so on. I think I made a commitment then to just use 3 specific things first, because he said it takes 21 days, 3 weeks, for a change, to change a habit. And so I believed him. And with great confidence, I came home, and when my children wanted something, then I dropped everything else and I really attended them. I either eye contact or got down on my knees, so I had the same height. They were very young. I held them at the shoulder. I forgot how many bills I have to pay or whatever else was going on in my life. And that's where I started out. I really fell in love with correcting parenting. And that brought me into the profession of coaching. So I did coaching education. I'm a member certified of the International Coaching Federation. Mostly what I teach and what I learned was through practice, being a mentor to other people and raising my own children, learning from that. Then I wrote a handbook with my friend. She and I were, I guess, courageous enough that we thought other women listened to us and invited them by phone back then. I mean, you're talking about 15 years ago or 20 years ago, by phone to do conference calls where we present things, where they ask questions, things like that. And we helped them. We taught them, how to listen, what to do, how to attend your children, how to fix or help them to go through conflicts and so on. Then I started doing parent classes by phone, also still by phone, not webinars. And people called in from the whole world, I have to say, because somehow the word was passed on. I was specialized in something. And people called from around the world. And eventually we saw that people needed more help than that. And the therapist and I designed family healing sessions, we called them. And that's what we're all here for, because I promoted that and I advertised that now I'm at a point where I really want to teach this. I want to pass it on because they're so effective. So over 10 years ago, I started this. We started it, and when parents called us for help, we prepared them depending where they were at, what they understood about parenting and what the circumstances were at home. But eventually, we led them to do a family healing session. That meant that I flew out to the home. And I've just been, a few weeks ago, John is a therapist that I'm training in this, and he helped me. So this was on the East Coast, so I could drive to, but I did 2 family sessions up on the more north on the East Coast. And that's when I'm for 2 days at a home. And I have a certain protocol for that, how to correct the family system, how to teach communication, how to help reattach the family members to each other, because there's always, when there's pain, when there's addiction and things like this, there's always detachment. And each person has a chance to talk to everybody in the family. So it's like arranged like a living room. But always two people, and I watch. I really look at, facial expressions, and when they hold their pain back, try to overcome it, giggle, all kinds of swallow it in some ways and so on. So I'm the one who brings it out, helps them to bring it out and really become very honest, authentic, show their feelings, say things that they've never said, and just correct the approach and the response to each other. So that's the main thing, the approach and the response, because, I think I could say we all have been attacking in our relationships, blaming, have been angry and said it's the other one's fault. You made me angry, right? So we probably all have been at that place. And so these things get addressed and corrected. I'm starting a course on the inner child, also on webinar, on Monday, February 5th at 8 o'clock in the evening, a webinar. And I do 3 sessions in February where I basically explain different methods, how to get to the inner child, what to do, what is the inner child, what the heck do you do with it? How do you heal it? And so on. And I do this work with every single client. It's the foundational work. I found it to be the best because when we don't know what unresolved issues we have, what ouchies are going to trigger us in meeting other people, then we always have a wrong response. We make the other ones that it's his or her fault, and we blame, and we go into victim land, and all these things. So self-knowledge and self-awareness is just so very important. Plus, you can shift your client from I'm so depressed, and I'm so nobody, and I'm so afraid, and so this, you can shift them fairly quickly to see differently, to feel differently. A lot of encouragement comes through this. I just did a session this week with a young man who had so much fear of the next interview and to find a job. And so we just went right into it, where he had other feelings like this early in life. And, he identified that. And we worked on that through the emotional freedom technique. And he just boom, flew out of the session happy. And the next day he had the interview, and he said this was the easiest interview ever. A lot. I do everything on Zoom. I did in the past on Skype. I now use Zoom because I can record the sessions for them, and they can revisit the whole session. They can rerun it. They can get what I said would be the homework. If I used things like emotional freedom technique or other things, then explaining how to do mirror work, or to step from a negative thought into a positive one, and so on. And they can see this again on the recording. They can really do their homework better. With the freedom technique, then they can watch it and do it along. They have that support, because it's hard to do it all by yourself in the beginning. All this goes on the internet, all my sessions. I just sit here and do sessions. You can experience, you can see it a few times, and then you can start. All of us, we get better in what we are doing often. So we start somewhere. So I can explain a little bit to you all what the different levels are and what is taught in those. I'm going on promoting the Advanced Family Coach Training. And what I teaching this is 6 sessions, but the main thing is we gonna go into look what happens after a parent calls and says, our family is wonderful, but we have one child that's this or that, and somehow, can you make him or her go to therapy? That's kind of the very classic phone call. I, in the coach training, will have 6 sessions in live. I give you a lot to read on the points that you see here. I have chapters written that you can prepare yourself. So I'm not going to teach all the details because it would be too long a course, and all of you are coaches or therapists. But I'm introducing the topics that I address because I believe that parents need to be educated. Knowledge first. Then they can understand, oh, I see, this is where I'm at. They get the big picture, what real love is, and where they have, so to speak, unresolved issues from their own childhood, and what unresolved issues their parents had. And therefore, it clicks for them. It's like, oh, I see, this is what's going on in my family, and all this needs to be addressed. So let me start on the top here. I do give parents a kind of time to fall in love with what the ideal is. Ideal is that our hearts are so developed that we can live true love, real love. I use the work of Dr. Greg Bear, who wrote 17 books on real love in parenting and marriage, at the workplace, and so on. So the main message, I really use that and help parents warm up their hearts and help them to understand, I see, oh yeah, such a harmonious family or such relationships I would really like. This is what we would need to achieve or want to achieve. And, here I am, I'm ready, basically. That's where we want to get the parents. Then, I'm strong on coach self-care, walking the talk, because we can't go deeper with parents, working with them, if they don't have a fairly balanced life, if they don't have self-care. So they need to look, we, including we as coaches or counselors, we need to look at their life and see what issues there are other than their child. That's what they're coming for. But what if there is a lot of fighting in the marriage? There's no harmony. The kids hear all the time, maybe fear that the parents get divorced. Maybe somebody's out of a job. There's money issues. Or always sick because there's so much stress, and maybe control issues, and so on. So there could be all kinds of issues. And you want to make sure, and I wrote a chapter on this, so you see the different categories and different things and exercises we're going to go over. How to identify what kind of life parents live, how balanced it is, how you can help them, and to address this either before you go deeper into the family or at the same time parallel. Because they, of course, want to have help as a family. They want to have help with that one child. So you don't want to postpone it too much, but you also want to make sure that they stand on a very good foundation. The initial phone call is something that we right away address also in the beginning. Like I said, a classic call is, can you please get my child to therapy? Then everything will be fine and fixed at home. And this is where I help parents to understand that it's not about the child. I help them to understand that this isn't their black sheep or their child that's in darkness or whatever they name it. But when they study this child, they can actually find out what needs to be corrected, and they all will be liberated. So I call this child the golden child, or the child that holds the truth, something like that. And parents, even in the first phone call, I try to shift them to understand this and to have, instead of icky, yucky, or he, she decides to punish us by taking drugs, and all these kinds of ideas that parents have why the child is doing something to make our life difficult and to destroy the family, disturb the family, and so on. By the end of the phone call, they're usually in tears. And they realize that this child is holding the key, that they all can see the true story, what's really going on, what's unresolved, that everybody contributed to that one child's misery or addiction. So depending on their spirituality or religion and so on, I often say, these children, that child is actually putting themselves on the cross and waiting there until putting off their life. They're not living their life stream. They're not, they're in addiction. Hello. They're not walking towards their destiny. They're holding off with it and hanging there, waiting that everybody sees we can't keep living like this. This is no way. And basically challenging that love would be corrected. So you can already see I stopped here longer. It's my favorite topic. Because I just have such compassion for the suffering child and the family. I was also the sensitive child, and even my childhood wasn't extreme, but I certainly felt like nobody's getting me. Nobody got me. Didn't understand. So when I go to families, the kids feel it right away. They feel that I came to translate what they're feeling, what they're going through, and what they're holding inside and can't speak about. They feel misunderstood and so on. And that is where you turn around the family's emotional health and spiritual health. Okay? So that's about the initial phone call. Then we study a little bit real love. Then I help parents understand that, you did your best. I definitely take away the guilt. I sure try my best to say, it's not your fault, but you need to take responsibility. You see the difference? I say it's not your fault, but you need to take responsibility. So the not your fault comes from parents. We all grew up. Did anybody tell you that your parents had unresolved issues and that's why they weren't perfect? Or that the teachers, the people around you, the whole village or whatever neighborhood it was, that they projected on to you what they believed and had unresolved. And therefore, we are a mishmash of all that stuff. Of moms, of dads, of the teachers, of the coach, sports coach, piano teacher, whatever, whoever. And then, of course, generations back. So I called my work generational healing because I definitely ask, when I go for these family sessions, I ask parents to prepare whatever they can find out on a generation or two back. They know, of course, about their own life and then how the grandparents were, where they're coming from, what special issues maybe they were dealing with, and what unresolved issues, or maybe in a religious language, what sins are unaddressed and unrestored. So not restored. So parents definitely learn then, it's not my fault because I did the best as a parent, but I didn't know that there's so many things that need to be looked at, that need to be addressed. So I have work to do. You want to get the parent to that level that they have no shame over it, that they, somehow that they accept this. Okay, this is what it is. Here we are, and we thank you for not judging us. Thank you for loving. Thank you for giving us a new insight in this. And, here we are, we want to work. That's where you want to get the parent. And so then I work with them on things like the origin, their own family origin. As you know, birth order, family culture, and especially parenting style. Because that's another thing that we get married, we come from a different parenting style, but we don't think. We think, oh, she grew up the same, here we are, we both want to get married, we are in love, we get married. Who talks about it? How are we going to raise our kids? What do we throw out from the past? What do we change? What do we overcome from the past? And what are we going to hold up? I mean, or what are we going to take forward or create new, even creating new? It is so hard to create something new. So this is the work of the parents to understand this a little bit better, much better. Right in the beginning, I do speak to parents about the option of a family healing session. Not everybody has to go through it, but it is a choice and it's a breakthrough. It's a shortcut, at least for most families. When a family gets together like this for 2 days, and I use my protocol, then it certainly shifts the atmosphere. And like I said earlier, more authenticity, clarity. There's, things come out that they never said. There's a lot of sadness, a lot of grieving going on, usually, and also anger, but controlled or in a safe way expressed. So I prepare the parents for that. I help them understand the dysfunction, why we take masks, where this is coming from. And then during the class, I teach what we compare. I mean, all of you have, of course, I'm aware of this, have tools, how to work with individuals. But I introduce the things that I use the most. And I also use more recent techniques like emotional freedom technique that I've been using a lot lately, and I can easily teach to my clients so they can help themselves, and it's very effective, very successful. And then towards the end, we also talk about small groups, because my hope is, besides that many coaches and therapists learn family sessions, my hope is also that it becomes more popular that people hold and go to small groups. And in small groups in either the neighborhood or in a church, or in interest groups, that people come together and study some of these different things and more, self-help books or things in that direction that are about family, how we can create emotional healing. So, I mean, here you see that the course is offered it's 6 sessions long for $345. You get a lot of chapters, a lot of written material. As I said, everything that you see named here. And for those who sign up until, what did my secretary write here? The 28th, I think it's Sunday night, then we even wanted to make it cheaper, more affordable, more attractive for $299. So then you just need to click. When you sign up now and pay that, then you get the materials and you can start reading. You get the material within 48 hours. And then you can start reading. And at the end of our introduction today, I will ask what a good time is for those people who are attending, because I think most of you, as I know you, can probably do it during the week at some point and not evening. I just briefly want to say Master Coach Training, that comes after this. This is the foundation here. This is foundational work that we can do on webinars. But then the Master Coach Training has 2 pieces that people would attend in 2 3-day weekends. And in one seminar, I teach emotional processing, many different tools. And in the last one, you see here, Family 1, Session Tools. And in the last one, I teach the Family Healing Session Protocol, because everybody needs to see it, needs to experience it, and so on. So it's not, I mean, it's, I don't want to say it's complicated, but there's a definitely protocol to it. There's something that you want to experience in person, you know, how this is when 2 people sit across from each other, the rest of the family, which will be as coaches to sit there, and we play the family. And I share how the protocol goes, how you interrupt, what tools you use in between, the emotional processing tools, and so on. So that. So I just want to end my presentation by saying, I'm sure you have looked at this before, and maybe you have added up the money. But I just want to say that with one single family session, you can get back and more of your investment. At this point, because I train and I've done it for a long time, I charge several $1,000s to fly out to somebody and to do this with all expenses paid. My goal is that many people are trained in this and can do it locally, so parents don't have to spend as much money and can do it maybe in, you know, 1 day or 6-7 hours one day, and then in 2 months another one, divide it, give a lot of homework, do a lot of processing in between. And I think that would be maybe even more effective. So it all depends, and you can ask questions here, of course, no problem. So people can create varieties, but there's no problem that you can charge between $100 and $200 per session, and you work for 5 or 8 sessions a day. That's when you really go into depth, very much into depth, that when there's pain or when there's, you know, so many unspoken things and unaddressed issues, that you can definitely dig deeper and deeper and do a lot of emotional processing and get to a wonderful place with the family where they feel, there's so much more bonding now. We're at a new place. I will stop here so we have some time for questions. So for the meantime, I do the stop sharing, and I would be very interested about your questions.